What happens when the most ordinary day turns into the most life-changing moment of your life? For Mia, this is exactly what happened. Mia was just an average young woman trying to make her way in the world. Living in a busy city filled with opportunities, she worked harder than most to chase her dreams. She was full of hope despite the struggles she faced. Every morning, Mia woke up early, ready to give her best. She worked long hours at a small job, but the pay barely covered her rent and basic needs. It was a tough life, and she was doing everything she could to make sure she didn't give up. Mia knew what she wanted. She wanted a better life, a job where she could use her talents and truly make a difference. But it wasn't easy. Mia had no luxury to fall back on, no connections in high places. She had to rely on her skills and hard work. Even when things seemed impossible, she pushed forward. Mia's dream job was at a big tech company that everyone talked about. It was a place where people went to grow to build a future. But for someone like Mia, it felt like that dream was miles away. She wasn't the type of person who wore designer clothes or had a fancy car. She was the kind of person who worked hard every single day just to make ends meet. One day, after months of searching and sending out resumes, Mia finally got a call. It was the call she had been waiting for, an interview at the very tech company she had always dreamed of. Her heart raced as she heard the words, but deep down, she knew she had to grab this chance with both hands. The interview would be her shot at something bigger, something better. She knew this was her moment, but at the same time, it was a terrifying thought. What if she wasn't good enough? What if she didn't fit in? The doubts crept in, but Mia didn't let them stop her. She had worked too hard to let fear stand in her way. She was ready to do whatever it took to land the job. On the day of the interview, Mia prepared herself the best she could. She didn't have the best clothes, but she made sure she looked presentable. Her shoes weren't the most expensive, but they were clean and polished. She didn't have the confidence that other candidates might have, but she had something that made her stand out: her passion, her skills, and her determination. She was going to give it her all. As Mia walked into the building, she couldn't help but feel nervous. The building was huge and impressive, unlike anything she had ever seen before. She had to remind herself to take deep breaths and focus. She had worked so hard to get here, and this was her chance. Mia stepped into the elevator, her heart pounding in her chest. It was her time to shine. Little did Mia know her life was about to take an unexpected turn. She had no idea that this interview wasn't just going to be another job opportunity, it was going to change her life forever. What do you think will happen in Mia's interview? Will she impress them and get the job she's been dreaming about? Or will the unexpected take place? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. The best comment will be pinned. The room was tense, but Mia had no idea that her biggest challenge today wasn't the interview itself. It was the man across from her. Mia walked into the sleek, glass-walled conference room, her heart pounding in her chest. Her palms were sweaty, and she tried to shake the nervousness out of her hands as she clutched her portfolio. She had done everything to prepare, studied the company, researched the role, and practiced her answers over and over. Yet nothing could calm the nerves running wild inside her. Her clothes were neat but not new. Her shoes were comfortable, but they weren't designer. She wasn't dressed like the other candidates she imagined might be in the building. But she wasn't going to let that stop her. Mia had skills, determination, and a dream to make this moment count. She wasn't going to let anything distract her from this golden opportunity. Mia tried to smile as the receptionist led her into the room. As she entered, she noticed the polished wooden table and the big windows overlooking the city. Everything about the place screamed success, and Mia felt a little out of place. She quickly reminded herself why she was here: to prove herself, to show that she belonged. Seated across from her was Ethan, the CEO of the company. He had a reputation for being sharp, intelligent, and tough, a businessman who got things done. Ethan was a man everyone talked about in the industry, the kind of person whose decisions could shape the future of a company. As Mia sat down, she was instantly aware of his presence. He wasn't just a CEO. He had a commanding aura about him, the kind of confidence that made everyone around him take notice. Ethan looked at Mia with a calm, steady gaze. His sharp features were framed by neatly combed dark hair, and his well-tailored suit gave him a powerful appearance. Mia felt small in comparison, but she held her head high. She had prepared for this moment, and she wasn't about to let the man across from her make her feel less than she was. She gave him a polite smile and greeted him. "Good morning, Mr. Ethan. Thank you for having me today." Ethan nodded, his lips curling into a slight smile, but his eyes remained focused, studying her. "The pleasure is mine, Mia. I've heard a lot about you. Let's get started, shall we?" Mia took a deep breath and launched into her prepared answers, speaking about her experience and skills. As she spoke, she could feel Ethan's eyes on her. His gaze wasn't judgmental, but instead, it seemed to be searching, probing, as if he was looking for something beyond the words she was saying. Mia kept going, telling him about her previous job, her accomplishments, and the passion she had for technology. She had always dreamed of working at a company like this, where she could make a real impact. But as she spoke, she noticed something strange. Ethan wasn't looking at her resume or asking about her qualifications as most interviewers would. Instead, he was watching her, really watching her. His eyes seemed to soften as he looked at her, and Mia couldn't help but wonder what he was thinking. She stumbled slightly in the middle of an answer, her nerves creeping back in, but Ethan didn't interrupt her. Instead, he leaned forward a little as if listening intently. His expression was hard to read, but there was something about the way he looked at her that made Mia's heart race in a way she couldn't explain. She finished speaking and sat back in her chair, trying to steady her breath. She had done her best, but she couldn't shake the feeling that something was different about this interview. Ethan was unlike any interviewer she had ever met. Ethan took a moment before speaking again. "Mia," he said, his voice calm but with a hint of curiosity, "I can see that you're not just looking for a job. You're looking to build something to make a difference. Tell me, what drives you?" Mia's eyes widened slightly. This wasn't a typical interview question. He wasn't asking her about her skills or experience anymore. He was asking about her heart, her passion. It was the kind of question that made Mia pause and think. She took a deep breath, then answered honestly. "I want to make an impact. I want to be part of something that matters, to work with people who are as passionate as I am about pushing boundaries and making a difference in the world. I've always believed that technology has the power to change lives, and I want to be at the forefront of that change." Ethan studied her quietly, his gaze never leaving her face. For a moment, the room seemed to fall into a heavy silence. Mia couldn't help but feel like she was being examined, not just for her qualifications, but for something deeper. She shifted in her seat, unsure of what to say next when Ethan finally spoke again. "I can tell you're not like the others. You're not just here for a paycheck. You're here because you believe in something more." He paused, his voice growing even softer. "And that's rare." Mia blinked, not sure how to respond. She hadn't expected him to speak to her like that, as if he understood her in a way no one else did. But she quickly reminded herself, this was just an interview. She couldn't get distracted by his words or his gaze. Ethan smiled, though it was faint, almost like a secret. "I'm impressed, Mia. You've definitely made an impression on me." Mia felt her nerves returning. Had she said the wrong thing? She tried to steady herself. "Thank you, Mr. Ethan. I'm grateful for the opportunity." But what Mia didn't know was that this interview was about to change everything. Ethan, the powerful and successful CEO, had already seen something in her, something beyond her qualifications and her resume. It was something he couldn't explain, but he couldn't ignore. Chua had captivated him, not just with her words, but with her spirit. As the interview ended, Mia stood up, trying her best to hide the nervous energy still buzzing inside her. She thanked Ethan once again and made her way to the door, unaware that the most unexpected chapter of her life was about to begin. Little did Mia know that the man who sat across from her wasn't just going to offer her a job, he was about to offer her something much bigger. Something that would change everything. What did you think of Mia's interview with Ethan? Was there an instant connection between them, or was it all just business for Ethan? Just when Mia thought the interview was over, Ethan did something no one could have expected. He asked her to marry him. Mia stood up to leave, feeling a mix of excitement and nervousness about how the interview had gone. She was proud of herself for doing her best, but she couldn't shake the feeling that something had been different about this meeting. As she turned to walk toward the door, Ethan's voice stopped her in her tracks. "Mia," he called, his tone serious, but oddly warm. "Before you go, there's something I need to ask you." Mia turned around, confused. "What is it, Mr. Ethan?" Ethan stood up, his chair scraping softly against the floor. He walked toward her, his eyes never leaving hers. Mia's heart started to beat faster, wondering if something had gone wrong. But as he got closer, she noticed the slight smile on his lips. It wasn't the business smile she had seen earlier. It was something softer, more personal. "Mia," he began. Again, his voice steady but carrying a weight that made her uneasy. "I know this might sound strange, but I feel like I've known you much longer than just this interview. Something about you has captivated me. Your passion, your honesty, and the way you see the world, it's rare, and I haven't been able to stop thinking about it since you walked in." Mia blinked, unsure of what to say. Was he being serious? She had never been in a situation like this before. She had heard of people making connections at work, but this was something completely out of the ordinary. Ethan continued, his voice a little more urgent now. "I'm not just impressed by your resume, Mia. What I'm saying is, I feel something real between us, something that goes beyond just a job or an interview." Mia's eyes widened as she processed his words. Was he saying what she thought he was saying? Her mind raced. "Mr. Ethan, I don't understand. What are you saying?" Ethan's gaze softened, and he took a deep breath, looking at her with an intensity that made her heart race even more. "Mia, I know this may sound crazy, but I want you to marry me." Mia froze. Her thoughts scrambled like a storm inside her mind. Was this a joke? Was he serious? Was this a business move? How could he ask her to marry him after such a short meeting? She barely knew him, and he barely knew her. She wanted to respond, to say something, anything, but her mind couldn't keep up with the words. Ethan watched her closely, his expression a mix of hope and vulnerability. He seemed genuine, and there was no trace of the usual CEO coldness in his eyes. He was looking at her with an open, almost pleading expression, like he had put everything on the line. Mia felt a wave of panic sweep over her. She opened her mouth to speak, but no words came out. Her mind was racing. She wasn't prepared for something like this. How could she say yes to something so huge, so fast? She had barely known Ethan for an hour, and now he was asking her to marry him. She felt a pit form in her stomach. She tried to push her confusion aside and take a moment to breathe. "Mr. Ethan," she said slowly, her voice trembling. "This is a lot. I don't know what to say. This isn't something I ever expected." Ethan took a step closer, his tone softening. "Mia, I understand. I know it sounds crazy, and I'm not asking you to make a decision right now. But when you meet someone who feels so right, it's hard to ignore it. I've been searching for something meaningful, something real in my life for so long, and when I met you, I felt like I'd found it. I don't know what this is, but I know it's something worth pursuing." Mia's heart pounded in her chest. She was shocked, confused, and, honestly, a little scared. How could she say yes to something so unexpected? Could this even be real? Was it possible for someone to feel this strongly about her after such a brief encounter? Was she just being swept up in the moment? Or was this truly what her heart wanted? As the seconds ticked by, Mia felt her thoughts swirl around her. She had worked so hard to get to this point in her life, struggling every day just to keep her head above water. She had always dreamed of a better life, of finding success, love, and stability. But this wasn't part of the plan. She hadn't imagined that her dream job would come with a proposal from a billionaire CEO. She thought about her own life, the challenges she had faced, the people who had doubted her, and the dreams she had built alone. Was this the chance she had been waiting for? Or was it just another distraction, something that would throw her off course and complicate her path? Mia felt her breath quicken as she looked at Ethan, searching his face for any sign that this was just a business proposal or a joke. But there was no joking in his eyes. There was sincerity, maybe even desperation. "I don't know what to say," Mia whispered, her voice shaky. "This is all happening so fast, I can't just make a decision like that." Ethan nodded, his expression softening, understanding her hesitation. "I know. I'm not asking you to say yes right now. But I couldn't leave it unsaid. I wanted you to know how I feel. And if you're willing, we can take things slow, get to know each other better." Mia stood there, her thoughts racing. Could this really be happening? Was she truly ready for something like this? She had spent her whole life working hard for everything. She had, but was she ready to trust someone like this? Ethan's proposal felt like a whirlwind, and it made her head spin. But a part of her, an unexpected part, felt drawn to him. There was something about his sincerity, about the way he looked at her, that made her wonder if this could be more than just an impulsive decision. At that moment, Mia felt torn. She wasn't sure what to do, but she knew one thing for sure. Her life had just taken a turn she never saw coming. Ethan was waiting for her answer, and Mia knew this was the moment that would change everything. In the blink of an eye, she thought to herself, my life went from ordinary to extraordinary. Could Mia actually say yes to a proposal from someone she just met? Or was she being swept up in a crazy moment? Mia stood there in silence, her mind racing in every direction. She had never expected anything like this to happen. In fact, it was so unexpected that she felt like she was in a dream. Just an hour ago, she was preparing for a regular interview. Now she was standing in front of a powerful CEO who had just proposed to her. How could she process all of this so quickly? How could she even consider saying yes when her heart and mind were so confused? Her thoughts ran wild, battling against one another. On one hand, Mia felt honored that someone like Ethan, a successful and powerful man, would even look her way. It was a dream come true for most people, getting the attention of a CEO from a top-tier company. She had worked so hard to get to this point, and now it seemed like her whole life was turning around. But on the other hand, everything felt rushed and unreal. She didn't know Ethan well enough. How could she say yes to something so huge without really understanding what it meant? Mia closed her eyes for a moment, trying to clear her head. She thought about the life she had lived so far, one filled with struggles and challenges. Her dreams of a better future and a stable life had always seemed so far away. Was this her chance? Was Ethan the person she had been waiting for, the one who could change everything for her? But then a voice inside her asked, was it too soon? Could she really trust someone she barely knew with her heart and her future? The more Mia thought about it, the more she felt a connection to Ethan. There was something about him that was different from the men she had met before. He wasn't just about power or success. There was warmth in his eyes, something genuine that made her feel seen, heard, and appreciated. It wasn't just his proposal that caught her attention. It was the way he made her feel, the way he cared. He wasn't rushing her to make a decision or pressuring her in any way. He was giving her space, offering a leap of faith, trusting her instincts. But did she feel the same way? Did she trust herself enough to take that leap? Mia thought about her own life, how far she had come on her own, how hard she had worked to get here. She had always been independent, relying only on herself to survive. She had never imagined that someone like Ethan would come into her life and make her question everything. Could she let go of her fears? Could she let herself believe in something so big and unknown? Mia took a deep breath, feeling a mix of fear and excitement. She was scared, but she was also filled with a strange sense of hope. For the first time in a long while, she felt like this could be a chance for something new, something real. She had spent so many years working toward her dreams, and now, here was someone offering her not just a job, but a chance at something that could change her life forever. She looked up at Ethan, his eyes still waiting for her answer. There was something about him that made her feel like she could trust him. Maybe it was the sincerity in his voice or the way he looked at her as if she were more than just another face in the crowd. Maybe it was the way he saw her for who she truly was, not just as an employee or an interviewee, but as a person. His proposal wasn't about a contract or a business deal, it was about a connection. Mia knew that this decision wasn't just about Ethan or the life he could offer her, it was about taking a risk, following her heart, and allowing herself to dream bigger than she ever had before. It was about letting go of the fear that had held her back for so long and stepping into a future that was full of possibility. With a deep breath, Mia looked at Ethan and smiled. "Yes," she said softly, her voice trembling but full of certainty. "Yes, I will marry you." It was the first time in her life that Mia had made such a bold decision. She wasn't sure where this would lead, but in that moment, she felt like she was making the right choice. Ethan smiled, his expression full of relief and joy, and for the first time, Mia saw that there was no fear in his eyes, only excitement and hope for the future. And just like that, Mia's life was turned upside down, and not just in the best way, but in a fairy tale kind of way. Her journey from an aspiring professional to someone who could possibly live a life of luxury, love, and endless opportunity had begun. Mia wasn't sure what lay ahead, but she knew that she was ready to take this leap of faith. In a blink, Mia went from job interview to wedding day, and she had no idea what to expect. It all happened so fast. One moment, Mia was sitting in a meeting with the CEO of a high-end tech company, struggling to keep her nerves under control. The next, she was standing in a lavish hall, a wedding gown flowing around her and Ethan by her side. How had her life changed so drastically in such a short time? Everything about this moment felt surreal. Mia had always dreamed of a life of stability, a career that would give her the freedom she longed for. She worked long hours, struggled with bills, and faced countless setbacks. But never, not in her wildest imagination, had she ever thought that her life would flip upside down in this way. One moment, she was a regular woman just trying to get by. Now, she was about to marry a man who had everything. The Whirlwind wedding had a magical, almost fairy tale quality to it. It was everything Mia had never had. A grand ceremony, the most stunning dress she could ever have imagined, a venue that was beyond anything she'd ever seen. But as she stood there at the altar, she couldn't shake the feeling that she was caught in a dream. Ethan looked at her with so much love and certainty in his eyes. He'd been completely sure from the moment he'd met her. His life, his world, had changed the instant she walked into the interview room. He hadn't been looking for a wife, he hadn't been looking for anything but a new employee. But somewhere along the way, something about Mia had caught his attention. She wasn't just another person to him, she was the one. Mia couldn't help but wonder how she could have known so little about this man and still be standing here, about to marry him. She hadn't even had a chance to really get to know him outside of a few hours in an interview room. But there was something in Ethan's presence that made her feel safe, made her feel like maybe this crazy decision wasn't as insane as it seemed. The ceremony itself was simple yet elegant. There were no long speeches or drawn-out rituals, just the two of them standing before each other, exchanging vows that felt both strange and familiar. As the officiant pronounced them husband and wife, Mia couldn't believe what had just happened. The woman who had once struggled to pay her bills and live her life in the shadows of uncertainty was now married to a man who had the world at his feet. Her heart raced as she looked at Ethan. He had everything: a successful business, fame, wealth. But more than that, he had shown her kindness and love. For the first time in a long while, Mia felt like she was where she was meant to be. She didn't know where the future would take her, but for the first time, she wasn't afraid. The flash marriage, something so out of the ordinary, so unexpected, left Mia in a state of confusion and awe. She had always wondered what it would feel like to live a life of luxury, to have everything she needed and more. But now that she was here, she realized that it wasn't the lifestyle that had changed her life. It was the love she felt for Ethan. but with love came doubt. Was it enough? Could this marriage survive in such unusual circumstances? Could love really bloom from a whirlwind decision like this? For Mia, everything was happening so fast, and as much as she felt happy and blessed, she couldn't shake the feeling that she was still in the dark about so much. She had married a man she barely knew, and now she was expected to step into his world. She was no longer just Mia, the girl trying to make ends meet. Now, she was Mrs. Ethan, wife to a powerful, successful man. Would she fit into this new life? Would she find happiness here? Or was she just living in the moment, caught up in a dream she couldn't control? As she sat alone in the quiet moments after the ceremony, Mia tried to process everything. She knew that she had made a choice, a leap, of faith that could either lead to the life of her dreams or into unknown territory. Ethan was a man who had everything, but would he be able to give her the one thing she truly needed? Love that would last? Mia thought she had found the man of her dreams, but could love really bloom in such an unusual situation? The days that followed were filled with whirlwind activities, honeymoons, family gatherings, celebrations. But underneath the excitement and the joy, Mia had moments of doubt. She had agreed to this marriage on impulse, but now that the excitement was settling down, she found herself questioning if she had made the right choice. Ethan was everything she had dreamed of, but she hadn't had time to truly understand the person he was. She was still getting to know him, and he was still getting to know her. How would they build a life together when they were both still learning about each other? Despite the uncertainty, Mia couldn't ignore the small moments of happiness that started to grow between them. Ethan was gentle, kind, and patient, qualities that Mia had never expected to find in someone so powerful. He made her feel special, loved, and appreciated in ways she had never experienced before. But still, the question lingered in the back of her mind. Could love really survive when it started so unexpectedly, so quickly? Mia's life as a newlywed wasn't as easy as she expected, especially not when it's a life with a billionaire CEO. When Mia said yes to Ethan's proposal, she never imagined how different her world would become. What was once her simple life, filled with struggles and late nights working to pay the bills, quickly transformed into something completely foreign. Now she was part of a world that glittered with wealth, luxury, and high society events. But the excitement of her new life wasn't all she had hoped for. In fact, it came with its own set of challenges. The first few weeks were a blur. Mia had to get used to attending glamorous parties, rubbing shoulders with celebrities, and making small talk with Ethan's high-powered friends. Every event felt like stepping into a world where she didn't belong. Everyone around her seemed so polished and perfect, and Mia couldn't shake the feeling that she was a fish out of water. She wasn't used to the extravagant clothing or the constant attention. What was normal for Ethan and his friends felt completely strange to her. The designer dresses, the sparkling jewelry, and the endless flow of champagne. It all felt like a dream she wasn't sure how to live in. As Ethan's wife, Mia was expected to be part of this world. She had to learn how to be comfortable in social situations that once seemed completely out of reach. At first, she struggled to keep up with the conversation and the etiquette. She didn't know the names of half the people she met, and she often felt like the odd one out. No matter how much she tried to fit in, she couldn't help but feel like she was always playing catch-up. The life she had always dreamed of seemed so far removed from the woman she had been just weeks before. Despite all the lavish perks of her new life, Mia couldn't help but feel disconnected. She found herself questioning if she truly belonged in this high-society world. Ethan was kind and loving, but there were times when Mia wondered if she had been thrust into a lifestyle that didn't align with her own values. She had never cared about wealth or status. All she wanted was to build a life for herself, and she had never imagined that her happiness would depend on a billionaire CEO. The people she now surrounded herself with didn't seem to care about the things that mattered most to her, things like hard work, dedication, and sincerity. Instead, their conversations revolved around business deals, the latest trends, and extravagant vacations. It was all so new to Mia, and she couldn't help but feel like an outsider. Yet despite the struggles, Mia began to notice something within herself. The more she adapted to her new life, the more she realized that she wasn't the same person who had walked into that interview room months ago. Back then, she was just a girl who hoped to land a job to get by. Now, she was married to the CEO of a billion-dollar company. She had more wealth than she'd ever dreamed of, and her future was filled with possibilities she could have never imagined. But what surprised her the most was the strength she had discovered in herself. Mia had always been driven by her dreams and ambitions, but she never truly understood how far she could go until now. She wasn't just surviving anymore, she was learning how to thrive. In moments of doubt, she reminded herself of how far she'd come. She had taken a leap of faith when she married Ethan, and now she was beginning to see that this life, though strange and uncomfortable at times, could offer her opportunities to grow. She wasn't just the woman Ethan had fallen for, she was someone who had the potential to shape her own destiny in this new world. As Mia continued to adjust, she found herself gaining more confidence. She started to enjoy some aspects of her new life, like attending charity galas and helping with Ethan's business initiatives. These events allowed her to use her natural empathy and communication skills, things that had always helped her in her previous job. Slowly but surely, she began to feel more at home in this new environment. Mia's role as Ethan's wife was no longer something she felt pressured into. It was something she could embrace as long as she could make it her own. But Mia's journey wasn't without its struggles. She still faced moments of insecurity, wondering if she was truly happy or just going through the motions. She questioned whether her connection with Ethan was real or just a product of their whirlwind marriage. Even though she loved him deeply, Mia had to acknowledge that their relationship was still new, and there were so many things about Ethan that she didn't know yet. As the days passed, Mia realized that her life with Ethan was going to be a constant balancing act. She would have to learn to navigate both her personal desires and the expectations of being a billionaire's wife. She couldn't forget who she was, but she also had to adapt to the life she was now part of. It was a challenge she hadn't prepared, for but one she was determined to meet head-on. In these moments of doubt, Mia would often think back to that fateful interview where everything changed. It wasn't just the opportunity of a lifetime that she had gotten that day, it was a chance to be someone different, someone stronger, someone capable of stepping into a new world and making it her own. Mia realized that, while she still had a long way to go, she wasn't alone in this journey. Ethan was there by her side, supporting her every step of the way. And even if her new life was challenging, it was also full of hope. Love wasn't something that happened overnight, but it was beginning to bloom between Mia and Ethan. At first, Mia had wondered if the spark between her and Ethan was real. After all, their marriage had happened in such a whirlwind. But as time passed, she started to see a side of him she hadn't noticed before. Ethan, the powerful CEO, the man everyone admired and feared, was showing her a more vulnerable side of himself. It was a side that was softer, more human, and it made Mia feel closer to him in ways she hadn't imagined. One evening, as they sat on the balcony of their sprawling home, watching the sunset together, Ethan opened up about his past. He shared stories from his childhood, how his parents had always pushed him to be the best, and how lonely he often felt growing up. Mia listened intently, her heart softening as she saw the man behind the success. She had always known him as the CEO, but now she saw him as someone who had worked hard to get to where he was, someone who had made sacrifices and faced hardships just like anyone else. The more Ethan opened up, the more Mia understood him. He wasn't just the confident businessman who could run an empire. He was also a man who had faced his own battles, someone who had been hurt before and carried the weight of high expectations for most of his life. For the first time, Mia saw him as a person, not just as her husband. In return, she began to share more of herself with him. She told him about her struggles growing up, the constant fight to make ends meet, and the dreams she had for herself. Mia realized that despite their differences, they had more in common than she thought. Slowly, the relationship between Mia and Ethan began to shift. It was no longer just about being a married couple in a luxurious setting. It was about real, Connection, understanding each other, being vulnerable with one another, and slowly building a deeper bond. Their marriage, which had once felt like a dream, was starting to feel like something real. There were moments of quiet laughter and inside jokes that made them feel like they were truly becoming partners in life. The tender moments, like when Ethan would make her coffee in the morning, or when Mia would surprise him with his favorite dessert, helped them to feel more at ease with each other. One afternoon, after a long day of meetings, Ethan came home early and found Mia in the kitchen, experimenting with a new recipe. He watched her for a moment, smiling to himself as he realized how much he had come to enjoy the little things, the way she would hum as she worked, the way her eyes lit up when she was passionate about something. He didn't realize it at first, but those little moments had become the foundation of their growing connection. "Smells good in here," Ethan said, leaning against the doorframe with a relaxed smile. Mia glanced up, her face lighting up. "I'm making dinner for us tonight. Thought I'd try something new." Ethan stepped forward, taking in the aroma. "I'm looking forward to it." They stood there for a moment, just looking at each other. It wasn't the flashy, high society life that they had been thrust into. It was a quiet moment of connection. It was the simple things that were beginning to matter the most, those everyday moments that brought them closer together. But even as their bond grew stronger, challenges were waiting for them on the horizon. While Mia and Ethan were learning to understand one another, life outside their home was anything but calm. The pressure of Ethan's business continued to mount, with more demands from investors and clients. Ethan's world was a constant whirlwind of meetings, phone calls, and decisions that affected thousands of people. And as much as Mia had adjusted to her new life, she couldn't ignore the fact that Ethan's responsibilities were always looming over them. One evening, after a particularly stressful day, Ethan came home looking exhausted. His shoulders were tense, his eyes distant. Mia noticed right away, and her concern grew. She had come to care for him deeply, and she hated seeing him carry the weight of the world on his shoulders. "What happened today?" Mia asked gently, taking a seat beside him on the couch. Ethan ran a hand through his hair, clearly frustrated. "There's a major deal on the line, and everything is on the verge of falling apart. I don't know how I'm supposed to fix it. It feels like I'm failing." Mia's heart went out to him. She had seen him at his best, strong, confident, and in control. But now she saw him vulnerable, questioning everything he had worked for. She reached out and placed a comforting hand on his. "You're not failing," she said softly. "You're doing your best, and that's all anyone can ask for." Ethan looked at her, his expression softening as he met her gaze. "I don't know what I'd do without you, Mia." Her heart skipped a beat, and she realized that in these quiet, vulnerable moments, their connection was growing deeper. Ethan needed her in ways she hadn't expected. And though their relationship had started off fast and unexpectedly, Mia was beginning to feel like this was the place where she truly belonged. Despite the growing love and closeness between them, Mia knew that things wouldn't always be easy. The challenges they faced, both personal and professional, were far from over. Ethan's world of business was demanding, and Mia's transition into this new life wasn't always smooth. But she was beginning to realize that love wasn't just about grand gestures or moments of perfection. It was about being there for each other when things got tough, about supporting one another when the world felt heavy. The bond between Mia and Ethan wasn't perfect, but it was real. They were learning and growing together, and that made all the difference. The love that had started out as a spark was now becoming a flame, slowly but surely burning brighter with each passing day. No love story is without its struggles. Mia and Ethan were about to face their biggest test yet. Life, it seemed, had a way of reminding them that even the most beautiful stories come with their share of challenges. After months of adjusting to their whirlwind marriage, Mia and Ethan's relationship was starting to feel the weight of reality. Their once perfect world, filled with romantic dinners, quiet moments, and the luxury of their new life, was beginning to show cracks, and it scared Mia more than she cared to admit. Mia had never imagined that being married to Ethan would mean dealing with so much pressure. She had dreamed of a fairy tale life with him, but the constant attention from the public, the cameras, and the media had started to take a toll. Everywhere she went, there were eyes on her, questions about her marriage, and stories that twisted the truth. She felt like she couldn't go anywhere without being judged or followed. What used to feel like a glamorous life now felt like a cage. She remembered one day in particular. She had gone to a small coffee shop to escape for just a few moments, to be normal. But it wasn't long before someone noticed her. Soon she was surrounded by people taking pictures, asking about Ethan, and whispering about her fairy tale marriage. It made Mia feel trapped. She had never signed up for this level of attention, and the constant pressure to be perfect was overwhelming. She wanted to scream, to escape, but she knew she couldn't. On top of that, there was Ethan's work. Ethan, the man she had married, the man who had seemed to have it all together, was now more distant than ever. His demanding work schedule meant he was always on the phone, always in meetings, and often traveling for business. Mia understood that this was part of his life, but it didn't make it any easier. She missed him. She missed their quiet evenings together, their casual conversations, and the small moments they had once shared. Now, it felt like he was slipping away from her, consumed by his responsibilities. At first, Mia tried to be patient. She told herself that this was just a phase, that the busy periods at work would pass, and that everything would go back to normal. But weeks turned into months, and the distance between them seemed to grow wider. The emotional connection they had once shared felt like it was being drowned out by the noise of their lives. Ethan was still there physically, but emotionally he seemed miles away. Mia began to doubt everything. Was this what her life had come to? She had always dreamed of a love that was strong enough to weather any storm. But now, in the face of these overwhelming challenges, she couldn't help but question whether their marriage was strong enough. Could love really survive in a world like this, where the pressure to be perfect and the demands of their careers seemed to pull them in opposite directions? One night, after another long day of being in the public eye and Ethan once again being unreachable, Mia sat alone in their bedroom. She stared at the reflection of herself in the mirror, not recognizing the woman who stared back. She wasn't the same girl who had walked into that interview months ago. She had changed, yes, but so had her marriage. Was it the right change? She wasn't sure anymore. She thought about the man Ethan had been when they first met. So confident, so sure of himself. He had swept her off her feet, and she had fallen for him hard. But now, he was a stranger to her in many ways. He wasn't the man she thought she had married, and she wasn't sure if he was still in love with her, or if the pressures of his work and the weight of their public lives had pushed them too far apart. Her doubts continued to grow. Could their love really survive in a world like this? Could they rebuild the connection they once had, or had they already lost it? Mia's heart was heavy with confusion and sadness. She loved Ethan, and she wanted their marriage to work, but it felt like the world was constantly fighting against them. Every time they took one step forward, it felt like they were pushed 2 steps back. Despite all of this, Mia couldn't help but hold on to a small sliver of hope. She remembered the moments they had shared, the laughter, the quiet talks, the way they had come together in the beginning. There was still something there, something worth fighting for. But was it enough to overcome the growing distance between them? Would love be enough to overcome the difficulties they were about to face? Mia couldn't answer that question yet, but she knew one thing for sure. If their marriage was going to survive, it wouldn't be easy. She would have to find a way to hold on to herself and to Ethan, even as the world around them seemed to be pulling them in different directions. And maybe, just maybe, if they could face the truth together, they would find a way to make it through. When things got tough, Mia had to make the hardest decision of her life. What was she willing to sacrifice for love? The days were blending into one another, and Mia felt more and more like she was living in 2 different worlds. One world was the life she had built for herself, with her career and her dreams. The other was her new life with Ethan, full of wealth, luxury, and love. At least that's what it should have been. But now, with so many changes happening all at once, she felt like she was standing at a crossroads, unsure of which path to take. Mia had worked so hard to get to where she was. Her career had been everything to her before she met Ethan. She had built herself up from nothing, and the thought of giving it all up for a man, no matter how much she loved him, was a struggle she hadn't expected. She had always been independent, and now, for the first time, she felt like that independence was being challenged. Should she continue pushing forward in her career, which had always been her dream, or should she put everything aside and focus on her relationship with Ethan, the man she had married so suddenly but felt so deeply connected to? As Mia sat in the quiet of their living room one evening, she thought back to everything that had led her to this moment. She remembered how overwhelmed she had felt when Ethan proposed, how unsure she had been about everything. But she also remembered the connection they had shared, the way he had opened up to her, the way their relationship had blossomed despite all the challenges. She loved him. She really did. But was that enough? Was love really enough to build a future on when there was so much to sacrifice? Her heart told her one thing, but her head kept arguing back. Ethan's work was consuming, and there were days when she barely saw him. The more she thought about it, the more it seemed like their love was a beautiful story, but one that couldn't last unless something changed. She couldn't keep juggling both worlds without losing herself in the process. She had to choose. The choice was terrifying. Mia had never been one to back down from a challenge, and this felt like the biggest challenge of her life. She had always thought she could have it all: her career, her dreams, her independence, and her love. But now, it seemed like the world was telling her she had to pick one. She had spent the past few days thinking, reflecting, and even talking to a few close friends. Everyone had their opinions, but in the end, it was Mia who had to make the decision. Her career had always been her foundation, but Ethan was more than just a husband. He was someone she could imagine building a life with, someone she saw a future with. But could she really give up her dreams just to be with him? After days of going back and forth, Mia finally came to a realization. Her career had been important to her for so long, but it wasn't the only thing that defined her. What was the point of all her success if she didn't have someone to share it with? What good was it to have everything she had worked for if she didn't have the love and support of someone who truly cared about her? In that moment of clarity, Mia knew what she had to do. She wasn't willing to lose Ethan. She wasn't willing to let go of the connection they had built, even if it meant making some sacrifices along the way. She had spent so much of her life chasing success and independence, but now she realized that love was something worth fighting for. With a deep breath, Mia made her decision. She would put her career on hold for now and focus on her relationship with Ethan. She didn't know what the future would look like, but she was ready to take the leap. Sometimes, you had to let go of one thing to make room for something better. And for Mia, that something better was Ethan. She knew it wouldn't be easy. There would be challenges ahead, but Mia was ready to face them with Ethan by her side. She didn't know what the future would hold, but she was willing to bet that love could make it all worth it. With her heart and future on the line, Mia finally chose the path that would define her. Now, Mia had to take the next step: talk to Ethan. She wasn't sure how he would react, but she hoped that he would understand. She had made a decision, and now it was time for both of them to face it together. Mia's journey reminds us that sometimes life changes in the most unexpected ways, and that love can happen when you least expect it. When we first met Mia, she was just another young woman chasing her dreams in a bustling city, unsure of how everything would come together. But little did she know that a single moment, a chance interview, would set her on a path that would completely transform her life. From that nervous interview to a whirlwind romance and an unexpected marriage, Mia's story is a reminder that sometimes the most surprising and beautiful changes happen when we least expect them. What began as a simple job interview turned into a life-altering decision. And through it all, Mia discovered more than just a successful career or a high society life. She discovered love, connection, and the courage to make difficult decisions for her happiness. From the outside, it might seem like her life became perfect, but like all great stories, there were challenges along the way. Yet, Mia's ability to embrace the unexpected and follow her heart is what made her journey so remarkable. What did you think of Mia and Ethan's story? Do you think they'll live happily ever after? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. I'm curious to hear if you think their whirlwind marriage will last, or if the challenges of their new life will get in the way. Every comment is a chance to dive deeper into this story, and I'd love to know what you think. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more stories like this. Thanks for watching. Whether you're looking for love stories, life lessons, or just a good escape, there's always something new here. Your support means the world to me, and I can't wait to share more stories with you. Remember, love can come from the most unexpected places, and sometimes it's the biggest leap of faith that leads to the happiest endings. Life has a funny way of surprising us, and sometimes the greatest love stories are the ones that start with a twist. Mia's journey might have started out as an ordinary day, but it quickly became something extraordinary. It's a beautiful reminder that you never know when your life might change, and when it does, it could be the beginning of the most incredible adventure of all. So, whatever you're facing in your own life, remember Mia's story. Love may be closer than you think, and sometimes the most unexpected choices lead to the most beautiful outcomes. Take that leap of faith, and who knows what could happen next.